were welcomed as well. We're joined now out of Canberra by former Labor Minister, now Shadow Communications spokesperson Jason Clare, as well as for a Liberal reaction, Parliamentary Secretary to the Treasurer Stephen Ciobo. Gentlemen, thanks very much for being there. Obviously, we were going to be talking about your budget and all things federal, but we're not going to do that now. We're going to talk about Victoria. Stephen Ciobo, your Liberal colleagues are a debacle down there. What's going on?
Well, look, Peter, I know probably as much as you do in terms of the coverage this evening. Obviously, I've just been watching what's taking place. I think ultimately, though, when it comes to Victoria, like so many other states around Australia, and like indeed the federal government, the choice that Victorians will have, sooner or later it might be, is a choice between a government with a plan to continue to restore the balance sheet or an opposition that's simply going to continue reckless spending.
Is this a political manna from heaven, though, for you? You're having an awful time of it selling or mis-selling the budget, and now, fortunately, at least it might be Liberal colleagues, but at least the gun has been turned on some other politicians for a change?
No, not at all, Peter. We know that delivering the message that we have at a federal level is going to take time. No one's expecting it to sort of seep through in the sake of 24 hours. This is going to be a slow, consistent narrative from the government in the same way that we were in opposition, just reinforcing every day that Australians need to recognise at a federal level the absolute mountain of debt and deficit, a situation where the government borrowed $1 billion a month just to pay the interest, and we're now making sure that we get Australia back on track. It's going to take time, and you know, we go through it regardless of what's happening in any particular state at any particular time.
Jason Clare, a Labor reaction. I mean, I know this is your opinion, but Daniel Andrews, the opposition leader down there, he has said in the past that he would not accept the tainted vote of Jeff Shaw. Jeff Shaw is now offering to vote for a vote of no confidence in the government. Surely the opposition leader can't accept that vote.
Well, it's a good question, Peter, and I don't know what the opposition leader is going to do. Heaven forbid a New South Welshman to tell a Victorian what to do. But it is extraordinary.
Well, don't tell him what to do, but tell me what you would do. You have much higher aspirations than Victorian Premier, but if you were Victorian Premier or Victorian opposition leader in this state, in this case wanting to become the Premier, what would you politically do? Would you accept the vote and the opportunity of an early election when you're so far ahead in the polls, or would you stick by your word and not accept the tainted vote?
Peter, I know you want to draw me into it and give you a view on what to do. Because we're just hearing about this now, I'm hesitant to do that. I make the general point that we've lost a Liberal Premier in New South Wales, we've lost a Liberal Treasurer in WA. In South Australia, we've had a Liberal leader now switch from the Liberal Party to become a Cabinet Minister in a Labor government. Now this in Victoria. It is extraordinary. It is extraordinary. And you've got to ask yourself the question, what's happening in the Liberal Party?
Well, what seems to be happening is they seem to be taking the lead from federal Labor over the last 6 years. Stephen Ciobo, what is happening in the Liberal Party? Because I tell you what, you can talk as much about strong government or good policies, try to segue back to the budget that you're trying to sell, but both sides of politics at the state level at the moment around the country in the Liberal Party, federally over 6 years in the Labor Party, and even in the last 48 hours, all sorts of unnecessary speculation on your own side concerning both Malcolm Turnbull and the Prime Minister after just 7 months in the position. Is it any wonder the public are looking at the political class and just throwing their arms up in the air?
Well, I guess I make 2 points, Peter. The first is, and if you permit me to be just a little bit cheeky, I think Jason's probably once bitten, twice shy when it comes to accepting tainted votes, given, of course, Labor Party's track record with Craig Thomson. But I'll put that to one side and answer more directly your question. And the simple issue is this, mate. Look, we are getting at a federal level, at a state level. You see it in the United States. You see it in the United Kingdom. We are seeing at a political level that there are a lot of not dead heats, but close to dead heats that are taking place. We saw in the previous federal election the coalition actually won more seats, but a deal was done between Labor and the crossbenchers for Labor to take government. Of course, in the UK, you've got the Lib Dems together with the Conservatives. You know, in the United States, you've got imbalances between the Congress and the President. So we're consistently seeing a verdict delivered up from the people where I think, frankly, there's not a clear view from the electorate about the direction they want to go in. Yes, they realise that we can't keep living the way that we've been living in terms of living beyond our means and having debt that just keeps spiralling out of control. And I don't just say that about Australia, I say it globally. But by the same token, the public says, well, we don't want the cuts, or we don't want there to be too much austerity and things like that. And so I think there's a little bit of ambivalence from the general community.
Yeah, Jason Clare, let me just bring you in before we run out of time on program. I have to ask you about your question in the Parliament yesterday. It drew quite a few laughs. Which way is the Prime Minister going to go? Is he going to support his friend Andrew Bolt or his frenemy Malcolm Turnbull? My understanding is that Labor's Tactics Committee was considering not running that question. Was it your question? Am I right? Are my internal spies correct on that?
Oh, look, we couldn't help ourselves but have a little bit of fun at the government's expense. The fact is that the government are creating problems for themselves here. There's bad blood, as you know, between Tony Abbott and Clive Palmer, and you're starting to see that with the way Clive Palmer's behaving. Tony Abbott's experiencing a bit of Palmer karma. Then Malcolm Turnbull comes in and tries to be the Palmer charmer, and Andrew Bolt comes in and attacks him. And you see the divisions already opening up inside the Conservative side of politics. It's I guess, the federal version of what you're seeing happening right around the country here at a more extreme level. We made the point. We made the point in the Parliament that the Prime Minister's got to pick between his friend and his frenemy.
Yep, fair enough. Well, we're going to have to leave it there, though, because we are right out of time. Jason Clare and Stephen Ciobo, appreciate both your company tonight, but also your patience and your indulgence to talk mostly about state politics in Victoria. We are right out of time on PVO News Hour. How do you go? 1 hour talking about Victorian politics. They always feel like the second cousin.